Hello and welcome back to the next part in our series, High Impact Interviewing. This is part 2, Acing the Interview, where we actually get to talk about the interview itself and preparing for those interview questions. So for those actual questions, we'll start with the first one. Can you guess or think back to your interviews? Was there a pattern in a typical first question that your interviews asked you? Probably yes, and it would be similar or exactly like the phrase, tell us a little about yourself. The good news here is that you can really prepare for this one. You know it's going to be coming. And the way you prepare is from that elevator pitch, so it will be useful yet again. This one is tailored for this job that you're applying for with this company. So when you think about tailoring it, think about your past experiences that are relevant and what about you makes you excited to be part of this job and how you will contribute to the team. Make sure when you talk about your goals, it's going to include this job at this company and how that goes into your overall career goal or career plan. From there, there will be a lot of different types of interview questions. Some of them are a little shorter and straightforward. A lot of them elicit longer answers and storytelling by you, and that's what we're going to talk about right now. So as you answer questions, there's actually a three-part process that I recommend. You want to answer the question, provide an example or backing up why you talked about that question that way, and then summarize. And we'll talk about the STAR method just in a little bit and how to use that for short answers and then some longer stories. So as we think about the STAR interview questions, this is really designed to help you answer questions that are behavioral interview questions. Those are the ones that elicit stories. So it might be, tell me about a time when you had trouble working with a teammate, or give me an example of when you exhibited wonderful customer service. They're called behavioral interview questions because the theory is the way you behaved in the past will indicate probably how you behave in the future. And ultimately, these interviews are here so that a future possible employer can try to tell as much about you and how you work and how you'll get along with their team as possible through these questions. So they would like to know a little bit about your past and how you'll carry that on in the future. So that's a little behind the behavioral interview questions. The bigger deal is how to respond and how to answer in an impactful way, and that is through STAR interview answers. STAR stands for situation, task, action, and results, and it's a way to set up the scene and tell a cohesive story so that it's remembered. The most memorable people that I've interviewed are the ones that tell a great story, and I think we can say that through a lot of things. Think about the stories growing up or the stories that you tell your children. The lessons from those stories resonate more than just giving an answer or giving an order to somebody, and it's the same thing for interviews. Situation is what really helps you set up the scene. So think about once upon a time. What comes after that? It's setting up the scene. And it's about a prince or a princess in a land far, far away with rolling hills and flowery meadows, and right? So it's the same thing for you. So the scene of your answer. For example, let's take an interview question such as, tell me about a time that you worked in a team to get something important accomplished. So the situation may be, I was an office administrator at Damro Incorporated, and I had two other teammates. One was in payroll and one was in operations, and we were asked to completely redo a database system. So that's the situation. It didn't have to be too complicated or too in-depth, but the listener really has to be able to put himself or herself in that scene and get oriented. T is for task, so that's what has to be done. This could be a task, it could be an opportunity, it could be a challenge or a problem that you're facing. So in our example, the task is to set up a new database management system, and perhaps it includes being able to take your current customer relationship management software and reconfiguring it so that it works better with your operations and payroll task streams. So that would be the task. An example of a problem might be, I was working with a team member who seemed to miss a lot of meetings and not return calls, and the task may be to figure out what was wrong and help that team member and help aid it. And this leads into action. So what did you do? And it's important when you talk about a team, you do want to address what the team did as a whole. So the action may be, in our example, to take our database, rework a lot of numbers, look at some similar companies and the types of systems and how they set up, for example. But you also want to highlight what you did. So what was your actual role? Because it's important what the team does. It's also very important for this situation, because you're not bringing your team with you, what you do. What are the types of things you're good at? How do you manage a situation, manage yourself, work with others? So really talk about your role in that team. And then the last part is the result. What happened? Was it a successful merge or transformation? Did the team member that you had to call because they were absent for a lot of meetings, did you find out that there was a problem with one of their family members and you were able to rearrange work conditions, etc.? You always want a positive result. And this, you'd think it goes without saying, but if it's a behavioral question that is in general a positive question, how did you work with a team? How did you exhibit great customer service? You don't want to go negative, and some people accidentally do if they haven't prepared for it ahead of time. The other side to this is if it's a more negative connotation question, the time you had a problem with a teammate, for example, you do want to put a positive result at the end. So although something may have not worked out well, or there was a problem that wasn't fixed, etc., you do want to say what did work from it. This could be what you learned, or how you did it differently next time, or that even though the problem wasn't solved, there were pieces of the puzzle that you were able to move on with. So you do want to end in a good result. This takes us to the 8 greats. And this is a worksheet that I developed to really prepare for these behavioral interview questions. So you'll find from your handouts that you have through the class that you have the 8 great worksheet, and you also have a long list of possible behavioral interview questions. So these are for your reference and a great resource for you. For the 8 greats, what I want you to do is think of 8 great professional or personal but related to professional experiences that you have that you can own as yours, where you were the one taking action. And so think of those experiences. On your worksheet, there's a spot to write kind of a title or a catchphrase of each of them down. And so for these experiences, write a paragraph or 2 about it. So describe it, and try to describe it in a STAR method, but it will be in pretty general terms. The way that you can use this 8 Greats worksheet is for a number of reasons. First of all, this will help you prepare for interview questions. So a lot of the nervousness from interviewing applies to the fact that you're not quite sure what types of questions you'll be asked, or where your mind will go, or if you'll stutter or draw a blank when you're trying to answer. This will help you avoid that. You already know you have 8 great examples that you can pull from in your basket of answers that will be wonderful examples of who you are. The other side is that if you're already thinking of great experiences, these are ones that you're proud of, where you loved what you were doing, where there was some positive result from them, and you shine when you tell a story that you're really excited about, that's right up your alley, that you know about and you're an expert in. And so this will help you shine and your passion come through, and that will make a great impression on who you are as a person. Also, by thinking out 8 different examples ahead of time, you'll be able to find examples from an array of different experiences that you have. A lot of the times people get stuck just talking about one position that they had, and they just cannot seem to get out of that rut. Every single question they have to answer with that experience because they can't think of anything else because they're so nervous. So this will help you think of experiences that are the gamut of who you are. Did you work at admissions? Did you work at a construction firm? Do you have 3 different types of bookkeeping or CPA experiences? You can pull through these. And it'll help you show a really well-rounded version of your work history. I find that 8 is a good number because it's enough to choose from, but it's not too many to have in your back pocket and ready and confident about talking about. So when you get to the actual interview questions, and this is for you to practice as well, practice using each of these 8 examples to answer lots of different types of questions. And your job at the interview is to just adapt the situation, task, action, result based on the question. So that example that we used beforehand where I worked in a team for a database merge and management system, I could have used that for teamwork. I could have used that for working with Excel, for working on a big project or an important project, for doing something that I hadn't done before and how did I go about doing it. I would just change the way I told the story. But once I have the story in my mind, it's easier to be able to focus on the topic and the point of the story than trying to figure out what was it about that I wanted to talk about? What did I want these people to know? So that is the overview of the 8 greats, and that is part of your assignment. And you'll know, and I've mentioned before, you do have a lot of other interview questions for you to practice with in the meantime. So hopefully that will be a great resource for you. Moving on, another part of the interview is a question, do you have any questions for me? So always have 6 to 8 questions ready to ask. Write them down if necessary. And do bring a portfolio with a pen and some paper so that you can write down questions as you go. In a good interview, you should be having questions come up that you'd want to ask later. Market yourself through your questions. So if you really wanted to let them know about something about you and it just did not come up in the interview, it's a great way to say, you know, I saw on the job description that database management would be part of my role. Is there anything specific that you're looking for that I can address? And then they can tell you and you can tell them. So you always want to have those 6 to 8 questions ready. Do evaluate the interviewer and the organization. Expect to be treated appropriately. You're interviewing them just as much as they're interviewing you. It has to be a fit on both sides. It won't work out if you take a job just because you need a job. Eventually, that's not going to work for one party. And make sure you understand the next steps in the hiring process. So before you leave, you have normally an opportunity to wrap up your interview. It's going to be in the form of them asking you if there's anything else, are you ready to go, etc., and go for number 2. Always thank them for their time. Reiterate that you're excited about this position and why you'd be a good fit. And also, if they have not specified, ask for the next steps in the hiring process. It'd be wonderful to know if they were not going to contact you for 2 weeks. Because what if you're expecting to be contacted within 2 days? That would be agonizing. Or what if there's actually another round of interviews that you'd want to know about being prepared for? So, wrapping up, remember your handshakes. Write down notes right away and ask for a business card. And write a thank you note for your interview promptly. The business card is very helpful to know that you're sending it to a place where the interview will receive it. And this is the end of part 2 of our high impact interviewing. Please continue on to part 3.